Hello. Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Hands-on SAP Dev with QMacro. That's me. Thank you for joining. Hello, Pierre. We've been chatting already. And hello and welcome, Ronnie. Great to see you. This is one of those occasional midweek slot episodes. We don't do these every week. Of course, we do the Friday slot every week. That's the sort of the guaranteed one, as it were. But this one is a midweek slot. I'm still trying to figure out whether this is the right time of day, the right time of the week, midweek. But we're going to stick with this sort of rough time for now. I think last time we did one, we did it at 3 p.m. my time. We're doing it at 2 p.m. my time right now because I've got another presentation I've got to give a little bit later that was sort of booked in a while ago. So welcome. Hitting my head against Fiori Elements. Okay, well, this is a good break. This is completely different. By the way, I've just noticed that I have been hacking around a little bit with the styling for the chat, not realizing that, of course, I needed to hack around with the styling not only for the main scene in this sort of, stream software, but also in the standby scene and this current video chat scene here. So over on over there, you can see that it's not very well styled. It's a little bit difficult to read. So I'll add at some stage a background to that, maybe a sort of a translucent or semi-transparent background. You'll see what I've done in the next scene. That should be a little bit easier to read, basically. What I had a problem with reading the usernames on the actual chat messages. So I've changed that a little bit. It might be worse, I don't know. So anyway, let's get on with it. What we're going to talk about today and mess about with together is essentially what sits behind the extension for the Visual Studio Code Editor, or IDE, that has been released by SAP and is designed to add language features for writing CDS. So let me just switch to the main scene. There we go. And there we go. Hey, good evening, Srikanth. How are you? I hope you're okay. I think the actual chat styling over there, now up there, seems okay. So that's good. I've got the keycaster on for Srikanth there. How are we doing? Where's my chat? Where are we? Oh, here we go. Perfect. Okay, so let's get started. I know this isn't a great time for everyone, but we'll just continue. So, by the way, I thought I'd bring up the description of this by showing you also, if you don't know already, we have a Google Calendar. There's a link to the Google Calendar in the Hands-on SAP Dev blog post. So if you go there, you'll see that there's a link there to a Google Calendar. And this Google Calendar, what I do is before every episode, I put an entry in there, and each entry by default has a couple of notifications, a 1 day before notification and a 30 minutes before notification. So you can actually access this calendar, add it to your own calendar, and you should get some reminders. So anyway, let's just remind ourselves as what we're going to be talking about, digging into the language server protocols, cds-lsp and Vim. So what's that all about? So let's start by going to where we were last Friday, and I think we've visited this place before. This is the tools page, the SAP Development Tools page, and at the bottom of the cloud section we have this CDS language support for VS Code. And what it says is it features language support for CDS as used in CAP, the CAP Application Programming Model. And we can download it. And we downloaded it last time as well, so I've got a downloaded copy there. We saw that inside there, there were various things, including, well, in fact, let's have a look. Let's get rid of that, because I don't need that. Don't need that. Let's go and open up a terminal. Let's bring it across here, make it a little bigger. There we go. Perfect. So let's go into temp and copy downloads VS Code to vscode.tgz. Make the VS Code 1 0.36 cd VS Code. Okay, now we've got to unpack it. What I did last time, I think those here were here on Friday as well. We're going to unpack this because actually the VSIX extension is sort of hiding the fact that actually it's just a gzip tarball. So we'll tar t x zf. In fact, tvzf VS Code.tgz. Okay, yeah, we get the sort of the extension.vsix manifest, we get the extension folder, and we get this content types.xml. So that's okay to unpack into here. So let's just do that and have a quick look. So what we've got, as we saw last time, in this is a whole load of stuff, including syntaxes that we'll come back to, but including some node modules, 2 of them being from the SAP namespace, specifically CDS compiler and cds-lsp. Now, if you look at CDS compiler, that's one of the, let's open up another terminal. Open over there. cds-lsp. If we say say npm info SAP CDS, we'll see that CDS compiler is one of the dependencies of the main CDS package. Okay, and you'll notice also we looked at this last time or the time before that SAP CDS was updated recently from 3.0.0 to eventually 3.5.2, and the associated dependency to CDS compiler is 1.8.1. That will come into play shortly. Let's get rid of that. We'll see here that inside the VS Code 1.0.36 extension for VS Code, we've got the compiler, but if we have a look at that, we'll see that the compiler is at version 1.5.0. So this is the compiler that was actually a dependency of CDS 3.0.0. So it's a slightly older version. Okay, and we'll also see that we have a version of LSP, which is the language server protocol implementation at, well, this is version 1.4.24. That will come into play shortly as well. But basically, that's what we get inside of the VS Code extension bundle, amongst other things. Let's start up code actually and examine what that looks like from a user perspective. This is of course my VS Code. I've already got the extension installed. We can see it here, and this is the 1.0.36 as it says here. And we can see that in the changelog it confirms that this is 1.0.36 and the cds-lsp is 1.4.24 and 1.5.0 for the compiler. Now that's sort of, therefore, if we go back to our shell, that's sort of not quite up to the same release level as the CDS runtime that we've got installed as a global package here, npm wise. It's not a specific problem generally, but for us, what we need to do for looking at this cds-lsp is have a little bit of a more up-to-date version of cds-lsp. And I've managed to grab one from SAP's Nexus repository inside of SAP 2.0.1, which will be, which I can show you now. The VS Code extension will be updated in the, I think it's in the next, is it in the next day or the next week, certainly at the latest. So you'll all get an update to the VS Code extension in the next few days, let's say, which will include therefore also an updated CDS compiler and an updated cds-lsp. Okay, so that's a little bit of a long-winded way of saying basically we're going to be working with the cds-lsp that's from inside the VS Code, but not the one that's inside the currently available VS Code, a slightly updated version which everyone will get shortly. Okay, so what do we want to see here? We also want to have a look to see details. What does this core data service language support for Visual Studio Code offer us? Syntax highlighting, code completion, outline support for third-party extension, not quite sure what that is, go-to definition, find references, and so on. And what I'm hoping to get through today with you is to be able to see some of these features, not in VS Code, but in Vim. And I'll explain what I mean by that and how we're going to do that in a second. In fact, looking at the first one, syntax highlighting. Syntax highlighting comes from, I've been digging around in the files earlier today, and the syntax highlighting actually comes not from the cds-lsp package, but from this thing that we had a brief look at before, which was the syntaxes. So this is almost like the syntax definition language for the CDS language, which then VS Code can take and appropriately highlight with color and so on, according to the VS Code theme that I've installed, for example, appropriately highlight the CDS that we're looking at and editing. So if we look down here, in fact, let's go into this. We'll see, for example, that here's a particular part of the syntax definition language for CDS that includes a list of tokens, association to many, association to one, association to two, composition of, and so on, okay, that are effectively matches for CDS classes, let's call them, or CDS types, my word. So in order to achieve syntax highlighting, we don't use the cds-lsp, we use syntax highlighting from Vim, which we'll have a look at briefly as well. So what the cds-lsp package offers is actually everything apart from syntax highlighting, effectively. So code completion, go to definition, find references, mark occurrences, and so on. Now, what is this language server protocol of which I speak? So if I go to, why all my windows are opening in on the other display? I don't know why. Anyway, let's do that and say lang server. So the language server protocol is used between a tool, the client, in this case VS Code, and a language smartness provider. Ooh, language smartness provider. I like that phrase. The server, to integrate features like autocomplete, go to definition, find all references, and alike into the tool. I've talked about this very briefly before, but basically it's a way of writing a language smartness provider once and making that available over this protocol to multiple front ends, so multiple IDEs, VS Code, Eclipse, IntelliJ, for example, I've no idea, and in our case, Vim. So there's a concept of the language server protocol, which also implies a concept of a language server and a language client. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. What we're going to do is extract the language server protocol package from VSIX, take it out and plonk it somewhere, and then use it to get it working with a language server client that I've already installed in Vim to talk to it. Okay, so that's what a language server, the language server is, and that's what a language server protocol is. Let's have a quick look at the sorts of things that I think we should be able to achieve if we wire up the right things together. What I've done is I've sort of taken the two CDS files from last Friday. Where are we? Let's just get rid of that actually. That's our North Breeze sort of mini Northwind implementation. So we've got the model.cds and we've also got the service.cds, okay? And I've put them in the same folder for now just to keep everything really simple. And that's why, am I still connected by the way? Yeah. And that's why we've got this from /model.cds. But let's have a look at the model.cds for now. Yeah, exactly. Smartness provider. That's amazing. That's a beautiful phrase. Smartness provider. I'm so going to use that somehow in some presentation in the near future. So as you can see here, what we've got is, of course, syntax highlighting. Okay, so the keywords like namespace and entity and key are highlighted in a certain color, denoting a certain type of part of the syntax. The types like integer and string and association, those are all highlighted as well, and so on. But more importantly, I guess, let's say I make an error, deliberate error here. I remove the E from entity. So it's already decided that there's something wrong there. You can see VS Code's implementation of there is an error, it's quite nice. It's very attractive. But if we basically hit F8, we can hover over. We can hit F8 as well, and we can say, oh yeah, problem 1 of 2. There's a mismatched identifier. It was expecting an at or one of these keywords here, of course, because it doesn't recognize entity, which is great. And we can switch to the next error by F8 in VS Code. Oh, well, yeah, of course, because it's not really within an entity definition anymore, because we're not using the word entity. It's expecting something else. So that's clearly an error. So those are sort of nice things that we get for free via the cds-lsp implementation in the VSX extension for VS Code for CDS. I'm going to put that back now. So we've got now a nice clean CDS definition, and we'll have a look at something else. Let's go down, for example, to line 20 and go to products. Now, if I say, for example, right click on, I don't need to move my cursor there, but just to demonstrate, right click, go to definition. Okay, so this is saying here, this particular property here is an association to many products, which is a thing, on this association or this relation. If I can right click here, go to definition, it will go straight up to products, for example. And in a similar way, we can have a look at this sort of find references feature that it talked about. Right click on suppliers, find all references, and it actually quite nicely in VS Code again opens up another little window here, reference results. It's a sort of a window that I've never seen before, references, or what is it, like a perspective, I don't know, using the Eclipse word or the Web IDE word. So you can see it's got 4 results in 2 files. Within model.cds it's got those 3 references, and within service.cds it's got that reference. We can actually jump to that reference there in service.cds. So that's pretty nice, right? We're going to try and make that stuff available in Vim. Partly because Vim is awesome, and any extra time I can spend in Vim is more time me learning how to use Vim better, and so on. But also the whole process, this isn't entirely necessary, but the whole process helps me at least, and I guess it's going to help some of you as well, understand a little bit more about how things work underneath. And I think this is a really fun way of doing it. So let me show you what I've got in terms of Vim set up now. So I'm going to close VS Code now, and I'm going to leave this. There we go. Let's go out of here. Let's go up to my Vim folder. And this is a normal Vim folder with my Vim RC, and in bundles, this is where I've got all my packages installed. You'll see that I've got a language client bundle, which is the language client package, which I'll show you shortly, and also FZF, which is something we looked at, I think, in episode 1, as in the second episode, a really nice command line CLI client, command line interface client, for doing all sorts of things. If you have not seen FZF, go back and either look at FZF online or have a look at the episode 1 of our series to see it in action. But look how fast that is. That's just a really nice way, like a fuzzy finder, OSX terminal, and so iTerm, whatever, right? Okay, we're not looking at FZF right now, but FZF is a dependency that the language client that we're going to look at relies upon to provide a few sort of choice option mechanisms. So the language client that we're going to use is called Language Client Neo Vim, and it's a regular plugin for Vim. It's called Neo Vim. There's a version of Vim, a new version of Vim called Neo Vim, but this plugin also works with standard Vim. It's from this person called AutoZemu. And there's a ton of information here, lots of documentation, lots of demonstrations as well. And there's the features. It'll do, for example, support go to definition, code completion, sensible completion. We'll look at that, and lots of different things here. And here's a quick start. But basically, there's also like an install bit of documentation as well. So we can go through this install documentation. I'm not going to go through this now and make you watch me install it. I've already installed it, but I've removed this configuration, or the configuration I've been using, so we can sort of build that up slowly. Okay, so we've got the language client installed, and we've also got FZF installed. So that's fine. And if we start up, let's go back into, let's go to our folder that we were just looking at with VS Code, and we got these two files here. Let's load up model.cds. Fine, okay. Notice, of course, that it looks very boring, as in there's no color highlight, syntax highlighting, and if, for example, if we get rid of the E of entity like we did before, there's nothing to tell us that there's anything wrong with that. To be honest, it doesn't even recognize the fact that this is a CDS file, whatever this is a CDS file actually means, which means nothing unless you associate different things with that recognition. So let's start to modify our Vim configuration to start connecting Vim, and specifically the language client in Vim, to the language server that we found or we've got inside VSIX. So let's actually quickly go back to the temp folder. Let's go back in here. Where was it? VS Code. There we go. There in extension, node modules. There we go. There. So if we have a look at the language server itself, it's a directory. You know, cds-lsp there, and in there we've got some documentation with markdown files. We've got a changelog that we saw. We've got all sorts of different things in terms of the package and the dependencies and everything. Here's a new file that I looked at the other day, npm shrink write, which is like a condensed version of the dependencies, the interdependencies of all the packages. But in here, out source, we've got this thing called server.js. And I've been digging around and asking you a few questions as well to confirm this thing. But basically, the server.js is almost like the entry point for the language server runtime for CDS. Okay, so within this package, within this cds-lsp package, this is the thing that kickstarts the CDS language server. And there's different ways to kickstart it. If you dig into the implementation, you'll find different command line options. Again, we're not going to go through that in much detail right now because that'll take a lot of time. Suffice it to say, if I quit out of here, suffice it to say that, let's go into that actually, it's CD, in fact, yeah, let's go do that again. I'm still learning Ranger, and this is a really good way of, for example, saying, LSP, let's go and go straight into there, cds-lsp. We could say node out source server.js, but nothing happens, okay? And I'm guessing we're not supposed to be really hacking around this, but long story short, if we give it the option standard IO, it won't exit. What that's doing now is it's listening on standard IO. It's designed for another program to invoke it. Oh, damn. There's somebody just wanted to get on the drive. I've parked on their drive, but I might have to run out in a second and get back. One second. I'll just speak to the neighbor. Oh, back again. We're okay. He doesn't need me to move the car. Okay, so this is designed for another program to invoke it and send it input through standard in and standard out, and receive output from standard out. There's another way of invoking this by saying set up a socket and start listening on a socket, and it will then, of course, use TCP to exchange or to set up a pipe to exchange that information, the requests from the language client and also the responses from the language server. I think actually the language server can also send independently to the client information as well. Anyway, that's another story. So that's how we're going to invoke it, okay? But how do we invoke it in terms of the language client implementation? Well, if we have a look at the configuration here, this is a configuration for the language client in Vim to say, well, and if you sort of stare at this long enough, you'll realize what's happening here, which is it says, well, there's a couple. Well, for JavaScript, invoke this command here. Okay. I've no idea what the command does, but we can sort of guess it's a JavaScript language server implementation that listens on standard I/O. Here's another example for JSX. There's already somewhere, let's assume there's already somewhere a language server been started. It started to listen on localhost port 2089 on that socket there, and then the language client will connect directly to that socket. Okay, so that's another way of another way for the language client to connect to a language server. What we're going to do is we're going to do something very similar to this to set up a little script that will start up that server.js and start talking to it. And if we're lucky, it might even work. Okay, so why don't we go to, I've got a little backup as well, but we're going to try and do this sort of live, as it were. Let's go to our Vim directory and let's go into bundle. And in here, you'll see I've already unpacked that same cds-lsp directory, or copied it across from the sort of unpacked extension into this folder. I put it in this folder for now because I wasn't really sure where else to put it. I could have put it somewhere else, but let's just keep it all in one place for now, inside of the language client itself. Remember when I said that the cds-lsp that comes with the currently available VS Code extension is 1.4.24. I've got 2.0.1 here, which we're going to use instead of that. So that looks exactly the same. Okay, what I'll do is I'll create a file, or in fact, let's start doing the configuration. I'm going to open the Vim configuration and go down here, and as it says in the documentation here, in fact, why don't I do this? I'm going to move this across to there, move that across to there, and then we can follow the instructions. So first of all, we need to set add a path to the runtime path. So if you've, that sort of background for the chat isn't quite right yet, but I'll fix that for next time. So we'll add to the runtime path, the path where Vim finds executables. We'll add the language client bundle directory, so we can find the binary, which we'll have a look. Which is in the bin directory, list bin, there we go, language client. So that is also part of the install of the language client for Vim. So let's go into here, add set runtime path equals runtime path plus what do we want to do? Oh, let's just users i34749.vim bundle, where are we, language client, there we go, there. Okay, so that's that. So we've added the runtime path so it can find the bin directory and find the language client actual binary implementation from the install. Now we want to follow these instructions here, set hidden, which is to do with whether when you're moving around with buffers and everything in Vim, whether things are shown or get in your way. So that's just a way of making things look nicer when you're moving between multiple buffers and renaming stuff in Vim, as it says here in the comment here. And now let's move it up a little bit. There we go. Let's let G, which is global language client server commands, equals, and we'll start with we'll just add one thing here, which is CDS, okay? Because we want to specify that if we want to start up a CDS language server, this is how to do it. And I've learned that what we can say, in fact, rather than the users i34749.1, for example, we can say expand, and then we'll say home, Vim, yeah, that's it. I should have done that above here as well. Bundle, language, client. Now I'm going to create a file called, which will invoke the cds-lsp server. Let's call it start cds-lsp. Okay. There we go. Let's just make that a little bit bigger, and this maybe a little bit smaller. We can still read it, that's fine. And there we go, so that's that. And let's just close that angle bracket, those curly braces there. What we also want to do, of course, though, because nothing's going to happen unless we get Vim to recognize the fact that when we load something like model.cds, it's a CDS file. Okay, so why don't we say here, auto command, I've got this written down here as well, buff read buff new file. So basically when we read in a file or create a new file called anything.cds, the set file type to CDS. It's as simple as that. So basically anything ending in .cds is going to be by definition a CDS file as according to the set file type command here. Okay, so that's good. And one final thing, well, in fact, we'll leave that for now. That should be enough. Okay, so let's just save that. And at the same time, let's create, oh, actually, let's go out here. Where are we? Yeah, let's create inside here a start CD. In fact, let's copy it. Copy stream stuff start cds-lsp, just to save time. And that is what that looks like. So we're setting a version here. I've just sort of made this a little bit dynamic, and we use Node to invoke exactly that server.js. Okay, so that's the thing that we saw before, and that's the standard IO output type or connection type that we specified to make it work. So that's what we need here to invoke the language server to start it up, start it listening on standard in, start it getting sending the output on standard out, so that the language client can talk to it. Okay, so this is the SAP's cds-lsp server implementation. Are we all still there? I think we are. Give me a shout if you've got any questions. Again, I definitely need to. I mean, this is exactly. Yeah, I definitely need to put some background on the chat here. Oh, that's a good question. How do you open VS Code from Docker container? I'm assuming you mean opening VS Code locally to access files on a Docker container. I don't know. I've never tried it. Anybody in the chat can answer that. That'd be really good. I might have a little play around with it. I don't use Docker all that much in terms of connections from outside. When I'm in Docker, I use I'm using a Linux-based Docker instance or image rather. So I'll just use Vim, of course, when I'm in Docker. But that's a really good question. Anybody can answer that, or maybe we want to transfer that to Twitter afterwards to have a talk about. That'd be really cool. I'm sure there's somebody there that knows. Anyway, okay, good question. Sorry, I can't answer it though. So there we go. We've got our start cds-lsp, and so that's good. So what else do we need to do? I think, is that it? CDS. Yeah, we've got cds.vim. That's fine. By the way, I've also got all this configuration that you can look at afterwards in my .vim repo here. Inside of Vim RC, you will see down here we've got the runtime path. Oops. Oh, there we go. Just like this, we got the runtime path, which is there. Okay, we got the home directory. We don't need to expand it there. We got the hidden. We got the auto command. We'll bring in the sign column shortly to see what that does. But we've also got this sort of expansion of this thing here to call the start cds-lsp. So why don't we try this to see what happens? Let's open up another terminal actually. Let's go to this folder here and see what happens. If this works first time, I'll be amazed. But, oh, there we go. We've got a little message at the bottom saying LC language client. Project root is the folder that we're in. Now, notice that we've got no syntax highlighting, which of course makes sense because, again, as we briefly looked at, syntax highlighting doesn't come from the language server, certainly not in this particular VS IX extension for VS Code. It comes from another set of definitions about the CDS language itself. So we'll deal with that a little bit later. What we'll do first of all is do exactly the same thing. We'll sort of remove the E from entity to see what happens, and nothing happens at all. Where are we? Why is that working? What have I not done? What have I not done? VS Code in local message 7. Okay, no, that's fine. Let's just have a quick look. Now, Vim LSP. What I might do is okay, let's try that. There we go. Okay, so I must have had something typed wrong in the Vim LSP that we just added. I've just restored it to what it was and how it is in the doc files, which is basically like this. So we've got the runtime path. Maybe there's something wrong with my home directory definition here, or maybe I think I might have not put a comma between buff read and buff new file. I can't remember. Anyway, that's working now. So, and this is exactly the same. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're saying, okay, we don't need that one. Oh, we've got lots of windows open here, haven't we? There we go. So let's remove this, and all of a sudden we get in the gutter on the left-hand side a little symbol that there's something wrong there. There's a symbol that there's something wrong here as well. Unlike VS Code, it's not sort of squiggly red highlighting the word entity and squiggly red highlighting name here. Instead, what it's doing is it's giving us something in the gutter, which is this so-called sign column. Set sign column. Yes, that was the other thing. That was the other thing. What am I doing? That we were about to add here. Set sign column. Yes, if we don't have that, then when we don't have a sign column at all, we can't see any of the error messages. We can see them at the bottom, but we can't see them on the side. And there's another option for the sign column, which will sort of contract and expand depending on whether there are any signs to show. So let's say set sign column equals yes. So we've always got it there, so we can see that. So already we've got some error checking from the language server in Vim via the language client, and the connection from the language client via start cds-lsp to what we pulled out of the VSIX bundle. We can do more though. If we say, for example, let's put that back. If we go down to products like we did before, we can now use some of the CDS language client features, standard commands, to go and talk to the cds-lsp server implementation to do stuff. One of the things, and is it in here? No, it's not in here. One of the things we can do is use the text document definition command to go and ask the server to take us to the definition of something, just like we did in VS Code. So if we say, for example, we're on products right now, we're here, call language client text document definition. Okay, now we're not going to have to type that out each time. We'll map a couple of key commands, for example, to do that. And it jumps straight there. So there's products. It goes straight to the products entity definition from there. We can also, however, do what we also did in VS Code, which is to find all references. If we say, for example, in fact, let's just use that, because in fact the references command is just like that one, but it's just text document references instead. What that will do is open up a nice little window at the bottom using FZF. So this is the FZF dependency in action here to find all the references to what we highlighted, which was suppliers. Even the reference, remember in VS Code we saw there were references to suppliers in two files, in the model file and the service file. So if we select the service file and jump there, it will automatically open the service.cds file there, which is pretty amazing. So we go back to the definition here, go to definition. Let's just do that. Let's do that very quickly. And we're back to the definition of entities in the model.cds file. We can do better than that because we can say, for example, let's say map, or let's say in normal mode, in normal mode, no recursion, mapping, let's map GD. In fact, we got it here, haven't we? There we go, we can copy it. And let's call it slider so we don't see anything at the bottom here. Let's call it GD as well, and call language server, language client, text document, definition, carriage return. Okay, and we'll also, we might as well have that one as well. Let's have that one. Okay, in fact, what we're doing. There we go, that's better. I don't want F3, I'll just have, oh, it's references, it wants find references. Find references is the other one we tried, okay? So now we've got that, maybe, can we reload this? Let's have a look, or source, the Vim RC. Now if we look for references, we can say find references, and there we go. We've got them there. And we can say, for example, GD, go to definition, and we go straight to the definition of categories. So I think that's really nice. This is just the start. I think the very fact that we can take the language server from cds-lsp and move it into a different environment and use it from a different front end just shows how nicely designed the language server protocol is as a thing. The language server protocol was created by or invented by Microsoft, and it's a really nice thing. So that's what we've got. But one thing is bothering me right now, which is that I'm sure there are more things in the language server that we're not invoking yet, but small steps. But the biggest thing that's bothering me is that we've got no syntax highlighting. Now, syntax highlighting is not something we can do with the language server. It's something we have to build ourselves with the Vim syntax highlighting, or with syntax highlighting in Eclipse or whatever. So let's just start with a little bit of that and see how we go. And if there's any, I don't know how many people are interested in sort of pressing on with this after this live stream, maybe building up sort of collectively an implementation of a syntax definition file for CDS for Vim. I'm game for it if anybody else is. But we'll start now. Okay, so there's a really nice page that explains, where was it? Create Vim syntax keyword file create. There's a nice, where was it? Was it this one here? Learn Vim script the hard way. Oh yeah, here we go. Learn Vim script the hard way. So this is using Vim script to define syntax highlighting. So we'll use that as a reference to see what we can do. Let's go out of here and let's go into our Vim directory. And what we'll need is a syntax folder with a cds.vim file. So let's put one in there. So make dir syntax, and let's go into the syntax folder and create a file called cds.vim. Okay, so first of all, this is just a way of saying, well, has there been some syntax defined already? If so, jump out and don't do anything else. Otherwise, let's carry on. So let's just add that first. If exists boolean current, oh, not boolean, is it? Oh, syntax. Then finish. Otherwise, let b current syntax equal CDS. Okay, so far so good. If we try that now, of course, it's not really going to do anything. Let's just go, where are we? In fact, let's have another window here and go into model there. Okay. Ooh, model CDS. Did I type that out wrong? What's going on here? CDS Vim. If exists, be current syntax. That's right, isn't it? If exists, be current syntax. Finish. Maybe we need to do something else. Okay. Anyway, let's just typo. Where's the typo, Christian? Where's the typo? Exists. Oh, thank you very much. Awesome. Right. Let's try that again. There we go. Lovely. Thank you. Thank you. Perfect. So now it can get quite complex. However, in fact, if I move, I'm just thinking on the chat, if I move the this browser window to here and move this one to here, we can see the chat a little bit better, can't we? Okay, that's cool. Fine, let's do that. So now let's start to define some keywords. Now we know for a fact that, for example, let's just open up another local projects, live stream, cap, LSP model. We know for a fact that syntax keyword, CDS keyword. So we're saying these are keywords, and we're going to call this bundle of keywords CDS keywords. We've got namespace, and we've got entity, and we've got key, for example. So there's namespace, there's entity, and there's key. Okay, we'll refer to these particular types in a different way. So let's go back up here, and we'll say highlight, link, CDS keyword. Oh, that reminds me, we haven't done code completion. We haven't tested code completion yet. CDS keyword as a keyword. There we go. Now we're down here, and the language server mechanism is still working. If we say, for example, entity, and then do an omni-complete, which is Control X, Control O, entity. We could say entity, banana. There we go. This is really nice as well. Let's say key ID, and then I, Control X, Control O. There we go. Integer or integer 64. These are this is exactly coming from the CDS language server implementation that we pulled out of VSIX. I don't know. I'm just sitting here on my own. Obviously, there's a few of us on this stream now. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited about that. So anyway, integer there, and so on. So we could say, for example, supplier association to suppliers. I love that. I absolutely love that. Anyway, so let's just keep that for now. Go back up here, and we can also say syntax keyword CDS type. Let's call them types. Integer, string, associate. Oh, actually, we want also. I guess I've noticed there's a to and an on, association, string, decimal, and boolean. And we'll say highlight link CDS type to be now. There are different predefined types which are then matched with the color themes that you install as well. So it'll say, for example, if I've installed the Dracula theme, and so the Dracula theme will define a certain color, like this sort of light blue, for a certain syntax type, whether that type is keyword type or constant type or other things. If you look in the documentation for Vim, in fact, I did see something somewhere else. Where was it? In fact, it was in this one here, which is it's a little bit complicated to read, but it's got some references here to different types. Here we go. There's a to-do type, a comment type, a statement type, a type. Ooh, a type. Shall we try type? There we go. So now we've started. I mean, we're nowhere near finished, of course, because we want to be able to sort of understand. Possibly, we need to be able to understand the fact that when we're inside an entity block definition, for example, we've got all the different things like the aspects and annotations to syntax highlight. We're right at the thin end of the wedge here, but I think it's it's a good start. At least we know we can get it to work. So let's just try that. Let's just reload or resource that. Well, actually, will that work? Let's just nope, we don't want to do that. There we go. There we go. We've got now, I'm quite amazed that works straight away. We've got namespace, entity, and key all highlighted as keywords. Now, one thing I'm not sure about yet is the fact that because I specified to as a keyword, it's now highlighting that as a keyword. There we go. So what I mean is, because I specified to as a keyword there, it's now recognized that as a keyword, and it's going to highlight it in the same color as the other keywords. What I really want here, at least, is the to. Let's put it there for now. I'm not sure. This is just hacking around. We want it to be highlighted in the type color, which will be defined by the CDS type. So let's just quit out there and load that in again. I'm sure there's a better way of doing that, but no, I'm not sure what I'm doing here. However, what I do have is, there we go. Same thing. Syntax keyword, basic language keywords, entity names, integer string, boolean. This is what I did earlier today. To and on. These are CDS keywords. And oh, actually, we don't want that one. Let's try that one. Wait a minute. Oops. No, it's still not working. Oh well, I don't really know. Not right now, but because I'm just worrying a little bit about time. But we've gone from stealing the cds-lsp out of VSIX and getting it working with the Vim language client plugin from AutoZemu, and it gives us a little bit of hope that we can expand the use of cap and CDS outside our arguably very comfortable area of using VS Code or Eclipse, for example, into whatever editors we really want. If we just do a little bit of digging, a little bit of work to find out how we can actually harness the language server protocol server implementation for CDS. This is pretty far up on the nerd scale. Nerd. Oh, I see, nerd scale. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Ronnie. Yes. So that's really all I wanted to show in this one. This was one of these sort of slightly extreme, maybe if what Ronnie says is true, extreme off-piste episodes. We'll be back to our normal schedule on Friday, continuing to look at building out the North Breeze service. For those of you, I know there's only a couple. There's only a few of us here, but for those of you here, let me know if any of you fancy using Vim and building this stuff out with me. I know that Volker Vobu couldn't make it onto this particular live stream, but I know he's very interested in Vim. If there's anybody else, just let me know as well. I think that's it. Is there any more that we want to cover here? I'm just thinking, what else do we want to cover? Cheers, John. I'm not sure. I don't think so. Hey, Napit. Sorry, I didn't see you join there. That's really cool. Yeah, I think we can draw this to a close. If there's anything else, I do know that there is a delay of quite a few seconds between me asking a question and seeing any replies on here. Oh, it's all right. No worries, Napit. Me seeing a reply on here. You're old, but not old enough to use Vim. Pierre, my goodness me. Nobody's old enough not to use Vim. You know, it's not too late to start. But anyway, yes, that's fine. But thank you for responding. Okay, so let's draw that to a close. I think, oh, perfect, Ronnie. Challenge accepted from Ronnie. I'll follow that up with a tweet on Twitter straight after this. That's awesome. Vim is just something else. It's absolutely amazing. I've spent a long time working in Vim, and I still know that I'm only scratching the surface. But things like this are a little bit fun as well. Think of Vim as a language rather than an editor. You think in Vim in terms of movement and say, I'm not that good. You can see, for example, well, there, right on the screen right now, just there is evidence that I'm not thinking properly in Vim, because I'm using the K key to move up or down. Where is it? Okay, up multiple times. If I'm pressing the same key multiple times, I'm doing something wrong in Vim. But anyway, I'm rambling now. We've got 5 minutes spare, so I'm going to give you 5 minutes back for the rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, I'll see you online on Friday. Thanks very much indeed.